And hello everyone, welcome back to another CSS tutorial. In this tutorial, we'll be taking a look at CSS animations, or more specifically, keyframes. Currently, when we wanted to get to an animation, we used to use transition. But the thing with transition is it is a very easy way to implement a type of animation. But just as it is very easy, it is also a little simple. This is where keyframes comes into play. For example, let's start simple. Let's just have this here. Now, if we wanted to, we could animate this background color just to get an example of how this differs from a transition. First, we need to provide an animation name. So what animation will execute when we want this animation to run? So animation name. And the animation name for this case can just be change color. And you can also specify the duration the animation will play at. And we can just say animation duration. And here we could say 2 seconds should be more than enough. So here we have animation, but we haven't actually defined this animation. So above this block here, we can say at keyframes, then the identifier would be the name of this animation, which is change color. And in here we can specify where the animation should go. Then we'll start basic and just use from, which says where do we start, and then to, which says where do we end. So we start from red. So let me just go in here and we can remove this background, or actually let's just go here. We say red. Now we start from background color of red, and we want to end in background color of green. Now when we save this, you'll notice over 2 seconds it does that animation and then it resets it. Let's make it a little bit longer so we can see it better. So 4 seconds. And you'll notice now it goes all the way to green. Once it reaches the end of the animation, it goes back to its original state. That is because an animation only runs and then it resets to what it originally was. Unlike a transition, it won't just automatically go back to where it was. You'll need to manually set that. So in this case, it won't transition or animate back to its original color. It will just go back to red immediately. Now, usually you would not be using from and to. This is just if you have a really basic animation that has really basic things you need to do. But most of the time, you'll use percentages, such as 0%. This could be 100%. And the idea behind this is, so this is also to from, but the idea behind this is you can have multiple in here. So we could go like this. So 25. 50, and let's also add a 75, why not? 75. And you can have as many of these as you want, but the idea is that now you have animation states or steps. So here we could say, instead of red, we could say pink, blue, green, and then we can softly transition it back to red. Now it goes red, pink, blue, green, and it's back to red. So here you can say at what state or stage this should be. And of course, the longer you make this duration, so let's say 10 seconds, the longer this will be, but it will still reach every state here. Now, of course, it isn't limited to something like a color. You can, of course, make it change in size. For example, we could go width, and what is the current width? The current width, 100 pixels. Let's say it starts at 100 pixels, and if you wanted to, you don't even need to specify it starts there, but I'm going to do that. At 50%, it will be 200 pixels, and then at 100%, we want it back at 100 pixels. And now you'll notice the width also changes as everything else changes. And again, you're not limited to this. You can also do positioning. So where should it be on the screen? Left, top, right, bottom, whatnot. the possibilities is endless. You can put any type of CSS styling in here to change it. Now you can also delay an animation. So let's make it 5 seconds, so it's a little shorter, but you can also add an animation delay. And let's say we delay it for 2 seconds. Now when the page refreshes, it will wait 2 seconds before it starts running the animation. If you want to skip forward in an animation, you could use negative. So -2 will mean it will skip forward immediately to after about 2 seconds. So it will do the opposite of delay it will skip forward. So we set 1 second, then we'll get this. You can also specify how many times an animation should run. For example, animation iteration count. It's times like these where this IntelliSense is very useful. And infinite will of course make it run infinitely, but you could also specify a number that specifies how many times this animation should repeat itself. In this case, if it's free, it will do this 3 times and then it will stop. I should have made this duration a little shorter. As you can see, did it 3 times, it stopped. If you were to say infinite, then it will just do it continuously forever. So 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6, and so on. It will never stop. You can also make the animation play backwards and then forwards. As an example, animation direction. And generally it's normal, but if you say reverse, it will play backwards and then forwards. And let's just make sure we understand how that looks. So we'll start it off at 120. So it will end at a little bit bigger than it starts as. So let's make 150 so it's easier. So you'll notice it starts and then it goes up to the big side and then it stops here at the end. So that will just, so all this will do is it just reverses the animation. Very simple. And here again, just like with the previous ones, we also have animation timing function. So this is the same as what we had with transitions, where here we also have linear, ease in, ease out, ease in, out. And basically, I already explained all of this in the previous tutorial, but to just explain it again, ease basically says start slow, go fast, end slow. Linear is be the same speed from the start to the end. Ease in means start slow. Ease out means end slow. Ease in, out means start and end slow. And you have cubic, Bezier, which is a whole mathematical function thing. You also have an animation fill mode, which has a couple of properties, such as none, which is the default, and that means nothing will really be applied to this animation. You have forwards, which means the element will retain the style values that is set by the last keyframe. Meaning, if we add a styling here, so let's say 150, and we go here and say animation fill mode, then we can specify forwards. That means it will end with this value, and you'll notice there's not that jump anymore. So if we do this, you'll remember there's that jump at the end. Ooh, very weird, nobody likes that. But if we do this, it means end with the last styles provided here. So if we change the color here will also stay the same, just like this width here. So it will stay as these last values passed in. You also have backwards, meaning finish with what you started with. So you'll get everything here. As this is the exact same things we have here, nothing will change, but it's the same idea as forward. It just now ends with the first one here, which might not always be the exact same you have here. Now, of course, all of these here is kind of a long thing to do. So what you can do instead, if you don't want multiple properties like this, is you can say animation. And here you can specify the name. So in our case, that would be change color. The duration, 2 seconds. The type, in our case, it's ease, but that's the default. So let's make it linear. The delay, so let's say 1 second. What the iteration count should be, we can say infinite. And in animation direction, we can actually say reverse. Why not? So if we do that, then we can remove all of these, and there we go. So it will wait, then it will start, and it will continuously do this every time. The only reason it's jumping like that is, again, because the width here, so if we made that 100, it will no longer jump like that. And that is the basics of animations and keyframes inside of CSS. It's actually very simple. You just give it new values depending on what you put here, and then it will follow that via keyframes. Thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all again in the next CSS tutorial.